So on most strongly supported and must be true questions, these are essentially the same thing. The only difference between the two is on a most strongly supported, it might be like instead of like must be true questions that are 100% certainty, most strongly supported is like 95%. So it gives the author or the LSAT people like a little bit of wiggle room, but essentially you should be handling them the exact same way. What these look like are our must be true question stems. We'll say which of the following must be true, or they'll say like can be properly inferred, what does inferred mean on the LSAT?
Is it like concluded?
Conclude, yes, conclude, excellent. So that's how strong of an answer choice that we're going to be looking for is like what can we conclude based on this information? Because on these must be true or most strongly supported questions, we have our stimulus and our question. Do these have to be arguments or are these more likely to be set of facts? Laura, do you know?
Set of facts?
Yeah, they could be an argument and have a conclusion, but most often these are like when I say 10% of them do not have an argument. These question types tend to be those 10% that aren't having a conclusion. But there's still those bottom or those top down questions. So when we have our answer choices, we have to stay between the lines because we're taking something just like a main conclusion question. We're taking something from the stimulus and we're finding it in our answer choices. So is it King Rockers? What is your first name? What should I refer to you as? Or Naya, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, Naya, so what kind of answer choices do we want for must be true and most strongly supported questions?
We want like weakly stated answer choices.
If there's ever a question type that it's important to remember that we want mild answer choices, it's these two. The most common reason why people get must be true or strongly supported questions wrong is either one, they didn't take enough time to really understand the stimulus, or they pick answer choices that are too strong. So let's also look at what how most strongly supported question stems will look like. It'll say like which of the following is most strongly supported by the information above. The statements above, if true, would most strongly support the following. If the statements are true, they provide the most support. Which one of the following best completes the passage? So those are like fill in the blanks, which we'll get to those in like 2 weeks. And then which of the following most logically completes the argument? That's the fill in the blanks too. You don't have the fill in the blank questions very often on the LSAT. So whenever we're looking at these two, we're going to approach them the exact same way. But whenever we're looking at them side by side, must be true questions are like if which of the following must be true, we're supported with just say would most strongly support. And so must be true are 100% certainty, most strongly support are like 95%. But just go ahead and handle them the exact same way. All right. So everyone go ahead and read this stimulus to yourselves. Oh, sorry. All right, so no small countries and no countries in the Southern Hemisphere have permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council. So can you go ahead and translate this for us, Malika? What is this saying?
That if you're a country that is small or in the Southern Hemisphere, you won't have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council.
Yeah, so if you are a small country, that means that you do not have a seat. So UNSC. Or if you are in the Southern Hemisphere, you also do not have a UNSC. So if you do have a seat on the UNSC, what do we know about you, Lisa? Just based on that first sentence. Oh, you're on mute.
What's the question? What do I know from the first sentence?
Yeah, if you do have a, it's okay if you don't know too. If you do have a seat on the UNSC, what do we know about you?
That
What do we know you're not?
you're not a small country and you're not a country in the SH.
There you go. Excellent. That was a better way to word it. Okay. Each of the 5 countries with a permanent seat on the Security Council is in favor of increased international peacekeeping efforts and a greater role for the United Nations in moderating regional disputes. So the 5 permanent seats, would these 2 things that we set up here also be true of the 5 permanent seats? Malika? Yeah? Okay, so for these 5 permanent seats, we know that they're not from a small country. They're not from the Southern Hemisphere. And we know that they're in favor in increased international peacekeeping. So increase the peace, and they're for a greater role in the United Nations in moderating regional disputes. So greater role. All right, this last sentence. Some countries, so what does some mean, Lisa?
At least one.
Yep, so we have at least one country that are in favor of the increased peacekeeping efforts, are firmly against increased spending on refugees by the United Nations. So this sentence, we just know there's at least one. So whatever this one country is, they are in favor of the peacekeeping, increased peacekeeping, but they are against the spending on refugees. So money for refugees. All right, go ahead and try this one and put in your answer in the chat, please. So it can't be A since we don't know anything about those small countries. B, some countries in the Southern Hemisphere are not in favor of increased international peacekeeping efforts. What do you think about this one, Lisa?
Well, I'm looking back at at your red writing, and I'm seeing that SH, Southern Hemisphere, are not on the United Nations, so I don't like that answer.
Yeah, we don't know anything about these countries in the Southern Hemisphere other than that they're not on the UNSC. That's the only, so it can't be B. All right, Laura, what do you think about E as an egg?
I like it because they're not some countries that are in favor of greater role for the United States in moderating region are not located in the Southern Hemisphere. Can you, can somebody else explain it? It's like I have it in my mouth, but
Yeah, no, okay.
I don't know how to.
Malika, what do you think?
That one actually is kind of stumping me also, but I think so. They're saying that some countries that are in favor of a greater role in the UN have a greater role in moderating regional disputes are not located in the Southern Hemisphere. So because we don't have a lot of information about the countries in the Southern Hemisphere, we know that one of the 5 countries usually is in favor of moderating. I don't know if I'm just like jumbling that
Oh,
up.
I think, okay, so let's look at this. We know of these 5 countries right here. What do we know about them? We know that they are not small. We know that they're not in the Southern Hemisphere. So that part is good.
Mhm.
We know that they are for peacekeeping, right? And they're for the United Nations moderating regular disputes. So does it have to be true that at least one country, does this fit the role for at least one country? So our answer is going to be E, because we can guarantee, because like some, what that means at least one, this is where those words come in. So at least one, is there at least one country not located in the Southern Hemisphere? So right here, not located in the Southern Hemisphere, that's also for an increased role in regulating, moderating regional disputes? Yes. All right, so let's look at, okay, so a lot of people pick C. So we say some countries that have permanent seats on the United UNSC are against increasing spending on refugees. Where do we find, how do we know that they're against spending? All we know is that some countries are in favor of this and some are against it. We don't know if these countries right here are on the UNSC, right?
So I went with C, and I think where I got confused was I was assuming that the countries that they were talking about that liked international peacekeeping were one of those 5 countries that were on the.
Oh, yes. I can see that because you went with the refugees one.
Yeah.
Do you see why that was incorrect? Excellent. Does anybody have any other questions on this one? Yes, Lisa?
I see why E is right, but can you go over C again? Why?
Yes, because we know that there's some countries, but do we know? So these are just some random countries. We have no idea who this country is. And they are in favor of the increased peacekeeping. And they are firmly against spending money on refugees.
Mm-hmm.
But this says that some countries that have permanent seats on the UNSC think this. We don't know if this country is on the UNSC or not.
Oh, okay. I did the same thing as Malika then. I think that I don't have my stuff with me, but I got this one wrong and I couldn't understand because I diagrammed it out. And I was like, yes, I got this one right because I diagrammed it and it made sense. And I was able to pick, and I think it was that one because I too was referring back to, okay, increase spending on if they're against it. I went back to that and then I was like, okay, it's these 5 countries. So don't do that next time.
No. Yep, you have to be that specific.
Okay, so like if they would have reworded it, if they wanted us to see that, then they would have said, however, these 5 countries who have permanent seats.
Yeah, they would include that.
Some
Yep.
of the countries with permanent seats are in favor of. Okay. Okay, I have to remember that. Thank you.
Of course. Okay.